Okay, so here we are again in March 2010. We're still playing Yu-Gi-Oh, but it's actually 2021, and we've tricked ourselves into thinking this is the best format of Yu-Gi-Oh ever made. But we can't decide which Twilight deck reigns supreme. I guess that's for y'all to decide in the comments, but when I first got into this format and came down here and dueled this gentleman, he hit me with a Twilight Lightsworn build, and I really liked that. So I went home and built my own, and we made a couple of changes along the way, some inclusions and exclusions. So I guess we're gonna compare both of the decks and see what they do the same and what they do different.
Twilight was really good before this format, and it got some really heavy limitations, but I think it's a really good balance to know how to form a deck. You're not overwhelmed with needing to play 3 of this, 3 of that, 3 of this, and you can really find a really pertinent balance. You play the deck a little slower, it can be just as explosive as Lightsworns, pure Lightsworns, even though Lightsworns took a limited hit during this format too.
Yeah.
But the deck has mass potential, and it's just really fun to play.
The ceiling is so high.
The ceiling can be high.
So high,
you can mill the greatest, or you can break into your imminent death. It can go both ways. But I will say, people that have played the deck, I've played the deck for a couple years coming back to Edison, and I played Lightsworns all throughout my Yu-Gi-Oh history. I've always loved the cards.
Yeah.
But there are decisions that are difficult to make with the deck, and sometimes you have to really know how to play. Sometimes you have to know when to lay back and not overextend, and how to play certain cards, and how to not base cards off of what you may or may not mill. It's a difficult deck to play. It is.
We'll talk about some notable exclusions as well, like specifically like some cards we've thought about and talked about, especially in regards to my strategy and the way that I play. I focus really heavily on a card in the graveyard is the best card. So I try and build my deck around the sense that I don't even aim to have any of these cards in my hand. Every card in the graveyard is a card I wanted in the graveyard in the first place. At least you try and make that theory as true as possible.
This build is definitely more of a toolbox build, where you want to mill what you may want because it's the quickest way to access. Your way of accessing cards is milling them and drawing them. It'll be a nice blend of the two. For anything, I think we need to talk about our beautiful proxies.
These are our tokens. If we ever, because Dandelion's legal in our format, so we can play Dandelion. It didn't get knocked off the list because of stuff like Crystron, Halki, Fibrax. So in honor of being able to play Dandelion, we use our Dandelion tokens. Binary Blader here makes for a decent one. And
we've got Lina, the Light Charmer, Lustrous, poor girl.
Wow, she is
poor
lustrous.
Gal.
She is very lustrous though. Sweetheart. So we're going to talk about what these decks do. One thing that they don't do the same is sell. They don't sell for the same amount. But
cardboard's cardboard at the end of the day.
Cardboard is cardboard at the end of the day, and that's one of the great things I will say really quickly about Edison, guys. You can get in this game at the ground floor with a really good competitive deck for like $30 to $50. So don't be intimidated out of the market. Yu-Gi-Oh is still alive in 2010. Some of the other things that I'm almost certain we do the same are 1 Gores, 1 Tragodia. It might be a they're not good enough situation, you can't play it. You don't want to see too many of them, right?
You brick if you play them at more than one. Yeah. The standard. You only played at 1 because it's not good enough to play it.
Right. So we're playing 1 of each. We also play 1 of each of Phantom of Chaos. Now we've talked about this card in private, but not so much on camera. Might be the best card in the format, but God, you either have to build a deck around it, or it just comes up so dead at more than 1.
So it's definitely one of the most versatile cards in the format, and I think Rick and I both agree through playtesting it. It works better at 1 when you don't want to dilute the purpose of your deck, when you really want to play these physical bodies out of your big guys. Puddle is so good at 1 within the sense that you essentially can get a revival effect out of many monsters in your deck, not only your boss monsters. Judgment Dragon's a target, Dark Arm Dragon's a target, Sork is a target, multiple
Tragodia
of your Lightsworns are targets, one of the best being your Lumina, of course. Tragodia as well, yes. So multiple targets, it works best at a 1 of, and in a situation where you really need it to come through and resolve, it can win a game simply due to the fact of what it can do.
So these are basically some of the really strong cards of the deck, same ratios.
Last of the real big guys, I play this ratio, and okay, Rick is playing a little differently, which is totally okay. It pays to be a little more careful with your normal summons. And sometimes you don't always have that Lumina next turn. You don't always have that Lightsworn. You don't always mill the Wolf and keep him alive until the next turn. So I love Celeste when it comes up, and it's absolutely an excellent card when it comes up. It can it wins games. As well as him, I like them when I get them. If not, they're a recharge target and a lure target. They're whatever you need them to be, but really good when you can play them.
The other thing that I'll talk about is just our dark packages.
Sure.
So Sangan, Gale, Necrogardna, Plague, these are probably going to be damn near identical.
Your broken one-ofs that when you have the opportunity to play them in a deck, especially in Edison, you do. And this is where Rick and I are going to differentiate a little bit, even though I, at one point...
This is where I got the tech from him.
Junk Synchron's excellent in this deck.
I got the tech really from him. He cut it and I kept it. I think you can do powerful stuff. Now, Will's already laid his card trooper, but to me, this is the unnamed Lightsworn. So I had it as part of my Lightsworn pack.
It is. I consider it a broken one-of, but it is definitely
it is broken one-of status.
The unnamed Lightsworn. Absolutely.
But these are the cards, if you see them in the hand, it's great. If you see them in the grave, it's great. They serve secondary utility by their names and typings. Then how do we get all these cards in the graveyard, right?
Cool. The one-ofs. The one-ofs, we play one-of just because they're just good enough to play at one.
Well, yeah, right. They're just good enough to play. These two specifically.
Okay, so these are limited, so you have to play them at one, and they're limited rightfully so.
They're so good. Nothing ruins your opponent's day like them setting a Raikou for turn and passing, and you normal summon Aaron. Garoth, unfortunately, cannot loop with himself, so he's a one-of because more than one doesn't do anything. So he's mandatory one-of by card design. Where me and Will differ is he plays a one-of Jane, and I play a two-of. And me and my brother talked about this. The need to go over a 19, 2000, or even match a 21 beater does come up in this format. It's a light, so it's an honest target. It's a big beater. You can sink 1800 damage in a worst case scenario, but the other utility is this card says mill 2 cards at the end of the phase. If nothing else, you just normal summon this card and pass. They have to get over an 1800 beater and you just milled 2. It's another name in the graveyard, so I played it too.
And that really is, if I were to make a modification to my build at this moment, it would probably be a second Jane. Yeah, I do agree.
The two-ofs. Still trying to get the cards in the graveyard. We're playing that light engine, and I actually differ from Will once again here. Thank you for the hand-me-down, by the way. Gotta get that one on camera. I got the beautiful hand-me-down from the man.
Oh yeah, we do what we can.
Still facilitating getting cards in the graveyard. This card is the biggest plus in your deck, especially with something we'll talk about later on, but this card can just net you so much advantage. It's arguable. At one point I played it at 3. Because I share this deck with my brother, I don't play it at 3. If this was truly just my deck and only I played with it, I would play 3 Wolf, just because it has extra utility. 2 Lila. It's arguable whether or not you play 3. It doesn't matter, and then I just play the 3 Raikou because I play the Junk Synchron.
And that was a definitive thing for me, going down from 3 to 2 Raikou was cutting the Junk Synchron. But I like 2, 2, and 2. I've played them at all ratios as well, as far as down to 1 apiece to 3 apiece. I've tested all ratios with these cards. Even in this format where you're not having to dump everything you have turn 1 and make an unbeatable board, you have time to draw your 2-ups. You don't necessarily have to play 3-ups. It's all about your preference. This is what I like.
Yeah, for sure.
Oh, that's the last of my lights.
Yeah, that's the last of my monsters as well, period. So we're done with monsters after this. To facilitate all that Lightsworn stuff that we play and the Judgment Dragons, any light monster at all, honest, comes up clutch time and time again. These ones are worth $2 if you want them. These ones, don't even look it up. You'll shit the bed.
So yeah, draw spells.
Okay.
Right. Okay.
Right.
So we'll differ a bit here.
Okay, so I play 2-pot, and the reason that I play 2-pot comes up so much. It's so much more clear to me why I play this card at 2 now, as opposed to you. You literally never would have a use for 2-pot in your build.
To facilitate the Beckoning Light, which sometimes in this deck is not as live. It's more difficult to resolve than it this is what I like.
Yes.
And I really, really like it for this deck. This card is an instant toolbox into your graveyard. You can sculpt your hand literally to however you would like, whatever you'd like to see. You mill 2 lights in your Sork and draw a Dark off of Solar Recharge or something. You drop the Dark, get your Sork back, he's live. You do the same thing with Dark Arm Dragon in the sense that you milled 2 Darks and your Dark Arm and you drop a Dark to retrieve your Dark Arm and he's instantly live. It just really, really makes extensive use of your hand to graveyard. I do the 1-to-3 ratio with that.
I don't play Monster Reincarnation at all, and that's why. Because, like I said at the start of this video, the point of my deck to me would be a card in the graveyard is a card you wanted in the graveyard. And I never want to see Monster Reincarnation in the graveyard. I feel like this card puts 5 cards in your graveyard back into the deck so you have a chance to see them again twice. That'll happen twice. So if you mill Judgment Dragon 3 fucking times, you just weren't playing JD that game, you know?
It really just boils down to your play style.
So these are obvious. In a Lightsworn deck, we have to play the 3 and then the 1 of. It's limited to 1, otherwise you would play it more.
You play it at 6 if you could.
Yeah, exactly. This is the engine of the deck. This gets things moving into the graveyard, into your hand, cycles out bad things, adds good things. So this is this heart and soul engine of the deck.
So last of my draw support is actually going to be that, and I'm not sure if Rick even plays Allure.
I do not.
I play 10 Darks, and it's just enough with the simple fact that you do play things like Gores and Trag and Caius, where there are times where plussing from drawing is better, but it's not always the case. So the fun cards.
I'm actually just gonna set down the rest of mine. So like these are obvious. I played these obvious 2-ofs, and see, Will does not. And I would agree, it's probably worthwhile to cut one of these. The question is which, it's up to the player, but these are all the spells and trap cards I played, outside of those engine cards that we talked about earlier. So the only thing is I eventually put Will on this card. When we were first testing, he wasn't doing it, but this card keeps coming up over
this card is great, and again, as we mentioned earlier, normal summons are really important in this deck, and you have your Honest, you have your Gardna, but it's really hard to game tempo when you really need your Lumina to stay alive a turn, or you need something to happen where, you know, the wolf you milled on your end phase to live through the next turn. But it's really great where you can get that off early in your turn and plus off of it with Celestia or anything that you were going to play. And then Foolish kind of adds to the same utility as Reasoning, is that, you know, it's a utility that can benefit you on your turn, can make a play alive. But this card is just crazy.
Depending on what style of player you are, if you fear the Starlight Road, keep in the Trunade. If you like destroying it forever, then keep in the Heavy Storm. But cut one of these, and I would recommend, Will's got the right call here, put Foolish Burial in for one of these and side into more Spell and Trap hate if you need it. And then the last one that I play is Beckoning Light. So Will plays a 1-of trap as well. I play Beckoning.
And this can really be whatever you want it to be. Mine is ever changing. Judgment's been in there for a while. I could debatably say something like Threatening Roar would be better. Even maybe 1 Beckoning Light would still be better. We just have 1 Judgment in for now. It's nice when you can lay a board down, you've gotten past the field wipes, and you can stop that one normal summon of an effect monster that's going to like blow your field apart and just give them everything they want. It's just it's strong, but this can easily be cut for another spell card or another monster, or just simply cut for Beckoning or whatever you please.
The reason that I play the Beckoning Light is because, first of all, if you see this card in your hand, you don't set it on opening turn. You set this card on the turn that you can use it with the most utility, and never before then. The reason that I don't play Monster Reincarnation is because most of the time, in my opinion, if you play Monster Reincarnation, you're going to be sussing back one of these cards. You know, like these are really hot targets for Monster Reincarnation anyway. Beckoning Light lets you add all 3 back to your hand at once. So in my opinion, there's not many hands or game states in Edison format that can stand up to this hand.
And that's a really good point with beckoning. I should probably play a beckoning. That might end up happening.
Who knows? But what I'm saying is that like this, I play one of Monster Reincarnation. So yes, while Will can get the utility of Chaos Sorcerer and Tragodia and Gores back immediately.
That's a biggie. Is Reincarnation does give you access to your darks.
This just gives you one turn explosion. I can win this turn because I added 2 JD Illumina and an Honest back to my hand. So yeah, it's different strokes, but every card you want to see in the graveyard is the idea.
I guess that leaves the extra deck, man.
Yeah.
Of course, you play the Gores token.
Right, yes, you have to.
You always play the Gores token. So this is...
We'll do like the generic stuff.
Sure,
sure.
And most people, if most people aren't aware, Edison was at a really primitive break for synchros. Synchros and fusions were kind of what you had. The synchro lineup was more or less generic and limited, but you still have absolute staples that you play, that you go into, you make every game. They're very relevant in the meta, and it's very good if you have access. This deck doesn't focus so much. It can be explosive without the extra deck, but it's there, and it's definitely worth having. Our
extra decks probably aren't going to differ too much outside of these cards. One thing that Will has access to right now that I don't is Arcanite Magician. So go ahead and talk about the utility of that card.
Yeah, didn't put Arcanite in this build, but that's okay because we have it right here.
Yes.
So the cool thing about this is this is one of, there are still times when the extra deck cannot fix with spot removal. Like, the dark end isn't always a play that you can make, and this isn't always a play that you can make, but it is nice to have that when you're sitting on 2 copies of Lila or you play triple Lila. You have to have a spellcaster to make it. So 2 counters, remove a counter to destroy a card on the field, something like that. It's really good. So we play it. Yeah. So besides Arcanite, it's pretty simple. You've got your 5s. Rick and I probably play. I think he might be up a Yurquizos, and I might just be sitting on the 2 main level 6s that you go into. Again, the extra decks are really free. You can do quite a bit with them.
So yeah, that's basically the idea, guys. Is we have 2 Twilight decks from the same format with a little bit of different approaches. But let us know what you thought, and yeah, we'll
get some water.
We'll get some water, and then we'll get together.